So I'm not really sure what you guys are trying to do to me here, but Ruinous Effigy is this week's featured weapon, getting 38% of the vote. I can kind of understand if you picked this weapon because you wanted to see how things played out for it post sandbox update, and you figured, hey, old Ironworker won't mind doing the testing. You know, that's fair, that's kinda what I do. But at the same time, you're asking me, someone who's not especially talented on the PvP side of things, to somehow gather enough footage to put a 5 games video together on a special weapon that has limited ammo, functions like a primary, and forces me to get way too close to enemy players to make use of its exotic capabilities. If for some reason you just envisioned me beaming down players and dunking on guardians left and right with those orbs, you are far more optimistic than I. But at the end of the day, these videos are for you, and Ruinous Effigy did get the nod. So we'll see how it goes, I guess. Ruinous Effigy is a void exotic trace rifle firing at 1000 rounds per minute with 94 rounds in the magazine. For the stats, they do fall short of most other exotic traces in a few ways. The range is considerably lower, the reload speed's below the curve, 100 aim assist is pretty standard while Ruinous Effigy has 84, and it does have 4 less zoom at 12 while others typically have 16. The stability and handling, they are pretty average. The intrinsic trait for Ruinous Effigy is transmutation. Final blows with this weapon turn the victims into void transmutation spheres. You can collect these orbs and then use them via the evolution exotic perk. The fire button will perform a light attack, aiming will perform a heavy attack, and guarding creates a draining void damage field. Once the exotic catalyst is unlocked and applied, Ruinous Effigy will deal increased damage to targets damaged by the transmutation spheres. Onto the weapon testing, starting out with the base damage. On rounds landed as crits, we're seeing 21 points of damage and 16 to the body. Both are seemingly getting a pretty aggressive roundup. I'm figuring 20.2 and 15.05 are closer to the true values. And that does lead to a figurative boatload of varying time to kill bullet combos and resilience breaks. And to not overcomplicate matters, the numbers that I'm giving you are versus a max resilience guardian. Landing 10 crits and 2 body shots will down your opponent in about 0.73 seconds. If you land 16 rounds to the body, you can secure that kill in about 1 second flat. If you want to adjust anything for lower tiers, you have the damage numbers, you have the resilience table. In situations where downing a target isn't going to require as much ammo, you can knock about 0.065 seconds per round off the kill speeds. For Ruinous Effigy's optimal range, you will be able to hit for full damage from up to 31 meters away. Past that, damage falloff begins to occur. Onto the transmutation spheres, which is kind of a mouthful, so I'm just going to call them orbs. As soon as an orb is collected, it is put on a 30-second usage timer. Performing light attack spends roughly 1 second of that countdown. Guarding and pulling up the damage field will triple the speed of the timer. And performing a heavy attack slams the orb into the ground, immediately spending it. For the light attacks, when striking an enemy player, it will deal 150 points of damage. So it will require 2 light attacks to down an enemy player, taking 1 second from the initial button press. Heavy attacks, on the other hand, can secure a one-hit kill, 300 points of damage max. And that is delivered through Void Blast damage, which still packs enough of a punch to down guardians from roughly 6 meters away. But catching an enemy player with just a piece of that blast, I'm figuring 8 meters is the ultimate radius, will apply the suppression effect. This does temporarily block the usage of abilities and can knock guardians out of their super. In versus roaming supers, even though we're only seeing 141 points of damage pop when the orb makes contact, I'm assuming that the suppression effect is being applied just in front of the damage, so it still does secure a one-hit kill. Versus defensive supers, it doesn't fare quite as well. If you run up and smash a guardian in a well of radiance, it is going to destroy the spike, but it's just not enough damage to down the player within. Versus a Ward of Dawn, those orbs do put a hurtin' on the bubble itself, but it's not enough to break it, and it's not enough to down the Titan with their hefty overshield. Onto the guard drain. The Void Aura has approximately a 4 meter working radius. Enemies that are affected by it will take roughly 12 points of damage per tick at the rate of 4 per second. So to down an enemy outright with this, it will take around 5 seconds. But keep in mind this is a drain effect, so you are leeching the damage taken from the enemy player back onto your health pool as well. And we also are getting damage resistance while guarding. Body shots with a 140 RPM hand cannon typically score 45 points of damage. But when the guard's up, we're only taking 23, negating about 50% of the incoming damage. One more thing to watch out for with this, you can hold the guard through the expiration timer and continue to deal damage. But you'll no longer be leeching that damage dealt to the enemies, and you'll begin to take self-damage. With that, oh wait, not quite done yet, we gotta look at that damage increase from the catalyst. Enemies will take 30% more damage from Ruinous Effigy's beam after taking damage from one of the orbs. Perceived crit damage goes from 21 to 27, and body shots go from 16 to 20. Now, if you catch an enemy with the drain attack or a light attack, the window is very brief to make use of this. I'm figuring absolute max is 1 second. It could be a shade less. On a heavy attack though, if you don't outright down the target, that damage increase will persist through the duration of the suppression. So you got 4 seconds. And hopefully that covers everything. So finally, on to the 5 games. I'm going to be heading in on my Shadebinder because I'm figuring the best way for me to kill enemies with Ruinous Effigy is to stop them from moving. For my exotic armor piece, I'm going to be using the Osmiomancy gloves to get improved double cold snap grenades. For my offhand weapon, which is going to be more of my in-hand weapon in this case, I'm going to be going with Blast Furnace. I got like 90 rolls to comb through, and I might swap out for a different perk set throughout the gameplay session, but I am going to stick on this weapon. And while I'd normally throw on the applicable armor mods to help out the featured weapon, given the fact that specials do have limited uptime, and because I actually need to secure kills to get more ammo for Ruinous Effigy, I decided to boost up to primary instead. So Iron Banner week, and full disclosure, I did play way more than 5. I try to get a set of clean games, no matches joined in progress, and no lopsided mercies regardless of which side of that I fall on. The game was seemingly pushing back pretty hard at me accomplishing that. But finally, perseverance did pay off and I got a good string of matches. First game on Vostok went pretty well for me personally. Granted, I was thoroughly warmed up at this point, but a 2.56 efficiency with 23 defeats, I'll take that any day of the week. Unfortunately, we did have this match in the bag up until the very end when we got capped out, and thanks to their big late game push, the bad guys stole the win out from under us. Next game was on Burnout, and my team did get mercied. But the enemy team did let us suffer just long enough that I really couldn't classify this as a throwaway game. I was really just focusing on not dying and sneaking in some kills and capping a zone when I could, but this one was kinda lost from the word go. Match 3 on Eternity, the 2-game losing streak got broken. It was a pretty decisive 62-point victory with my entire team playing quite well. And you might be noticing the trend of Ruinous Effigy not getting a ton of action. We're gonna talk a little more about that in a minute. Distant Shore was up next and got another win, mainly thanks to the 4-stack that I got paired up with. They were solid players. If 42 points, 19 defeats, and a 2.71 efficiency puts me 4th on my team's leaderboard, that tells me there were some Guardians putting in some work. Final match, Citadel, and this was a sad one to end on. I think I get the last chance to do something good mindset whenever I get to the last match of the play session, and I tend to get a bit more aggressive. Sometimes it works out, this time it did not. I played pretty bad in a game that came down to the wire, and I have my teammates to thank for securing the win. Ruinous Effigy though, the gun that you, at least 38% of you, made me use. I may have done some tongue-in-cheek whining about it, but I think this gun could hold some potential for those willing to put in the time. Stat-wise, it does fall short of many other exotic traces, but I didn't find the in-game performance to be noticeably lacking. It just felt like a trace rifle. And then the orbs, with their ability to secure a one-hit kill, and the advantage of being able to peek corners in third person, make them a lot of fun to use. But I think for Ruinous Effigy to be any more than a meme gun, you'd have to dedicate a lot of time to mastering its ins and outs. If you do master it, you could probably do some nasty things to people with this gun, but I knew on a personal level I wasn't anywhere near that point, so I wasn't gonna force the issue. I leaned on Blast Furnace pretty heavily, and pulled out Ruinous Effigy only when I thought I could make a play with it. And I will say, I thought the Stasis Ruinous Effigy combo did pan out pretty well. I'm honestly not sure if I would have downed half as many enemies with the weapon if I wasn't on my Shadebinder. And that's mainly because the ammo economy was pretty rough. You transmat 24 rounds, which should guarantee you 1 kill, but with traces, if you slip off target for just a split second with that beam, next thing you know your magazine's empty and the enemy is still alive. So for me, being a player with not great aim and subpar target tracing, freezing an enemy and holding them in place became an integral part of the setup when securing the kill. And when I did generate an orb, I found it was more a recipe for making bad decisions than anything else. If I make an orb, I must recover it. If I recover it, I must use it. If not, what the hell am I even doing with this gun? And the baddies caught me several times breaking cover to try and go pick one up. But the biggest problem I had is once you have it, you can't just instantly slam it down a player's throat. That wind-up time on the slam is not exactly short. Enemy players do have time to react. And the disappointment of getting gunned down mid-slam is immeasurable. Believe me, it happened a lot. And then all the other really interesting aspects of the gun, the buff from the catalyst, the suppression, the drain attack, I just couldn't see them coming into play much in PvP. They're fantastic in PvE activities. I was looking for a time and place to make use of them, I just couldn't really find it. Now, I'm sure there is a Ruinous Effigy aficionado out there putting them to very good use. You know, if there's anything I learned about the Destiny community over the years, is that if you say something can't be done, there's someone waiting out there to prove you wrong. But for me personally, I'm gonna pass on Ruinous Effigy in PvP. It can be a lot of fun, but just given my skill level and the setup that it requires to get this gun going, the value's just not there for me. But hey, maybe it is for you. Definitely give it a try if it piques your interest. Regarding next week's 5 games video, because you guys did such a bang up job with this one, kidding of course, I'm gonna put the community suggested weapons on hold just for 1 week. I would like to have a look at one of the Brave Arsenal weapons in the 5 game series. I'm still gonna run the Friday poll with 4 selections so you can pick my poison, but there are a few of them that I've really been enjoying and I'd like to take the time to dive into one. So if you could humor me just for 1 week,
that would be great. Okay?
That's gonna do it for this one though. Please remember to leave the video a like if you did enjoy it. Feel free to subscribe to the channel if you'd like to keep up to date with this series or any of my other Destiny 2 content. And with that, have a great day, Guardians, and I'll catch you on the next one.